Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 496 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Chandler Hunter, here at the Unpopular Podcast. And I really asked you to agree with me and actually hear me out. I appreciate everyone that asked where I was. If you didn't watch or listen to the last episode, I went on a bit of a vacation. I went to Puerto Rico. Beautiful, beautiful place. First time going. You guys probably don't care, but I'm back, and I appreciate everyone that's still here. And I missed 2 episodes, so some of this is going to be a little bit of a recap with some things that are older, but we're here, and I want to start this episode with the biggest news that happened while I was gone was Mike Malone getting fired from the Denver Nuggets. The head coach, also the GM, Calvin Booth, was also fired. And when you hear stuff like this, the shocking part isn't the most shocking part isn't that Mike Malone was fired. I think that we know that coaches get hired to get fired. That's something that I think Hardy, I forgot his first name, but he used to be on the coaching staff with the Lakers. That's what he talked about. Shout out to Candace Parker. She essentially said it. Gone are the days where you're going to get a Greg Popovich, you're going to get a Eric Spoelstra, you're going to get a Phil Jackson, you're going to get those long tenured coaches. Because the world is so sped up, the sports world is so sped up, the NBA is so sped up, they want immediate success. And even if you give them immediate success, that doesn't essentially mean that you're going to stay there for the long term. Hell, think about this. I know it hasn't happened, but think about how many times you've heard people say Golden State needs to fire Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr, who's won 4 championships with this organization, they're saying that they need to move on from Steve Kerr. This is such a microwave, a popcorn society, especially when we talk about the NBA, that it is essentially what have you done for me lately, not what have you done for me overall. But the most shocking part about this Mike Malone thing is when he got fired. We're 2 or 3 games before the play-in, meaning that we're pretty much 2 to 3 weeks away from the playoffs. And on top of that, the Denver Nuggets are in the 3 to 4 spot in the West. They have Nikola Jokic. They have a legitimate shot of winning a championship. I don't know if they're going to. I probably wouldn't pick them to win, but they have a legitimate shot, especially when you see where they're placed, who they have on their team. They had a legitimate shot. When stuff like this happens, you question a lot of things. Now, reports are coming out saying that Mike Malone lost the locker room and players didn't like how Mike Malone treated Russell Westbrook and how they felt he put him on a pedestal, and him and Calvin Boom, who is now the former GM, didn't see eye to eye. It was pretty much what the reports were pretty much painting is it was chaos in the locker room. When it came to Mike Malone and the players and the GM, it just wasn't a beautiful place to be. And for that, I understand. If, it's, again, I talk about the whole microwavable thing. That's also with players, too. A lot of times, players can lose the ear of the coach. And at that point, when that happens, you got to go. We've seen that so many times, not saying that he's a bad coach, not saying that whoever is a bad coach, but there are some times that you just don't get to the players anymore. Your philosophy, your words, nothing that you can say can get them riled up. And On top of that, I get it. If you lose the locker room, if it's a toxic place to play, I understand. What I don't understand, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with the former Memphis Grizzlies coach. What do you think you have a better shot of doing? I'm not saying you don't fire Mike Malone. But what do you think you have a better shot doing, especially when you are a week to 2 weeks week to 2 weeks until you get to the playoffs, and you're in the 3 to 4 seed, depending on where I think there's like 2 or 3 games left of the regular season. You're not going to be in the play-in, so you're either going to be the 3 or 4. What do you think is more likely to happen? You win a championship with the coach that you've already won a championship with, even though the locker room is shaky, even though it may not be the best place to play, even though you may have turned your ear off to the coach. This is the same coach that has gotten you that got you a championship. If I'm not mistaken, this is the same coach that got your franchise, I think, the first championship. I could be wrong on that, but still. You think you have a better shot of winning with him, even with all that has been reported to go on, or a new interim head coach 3 to 4 games left in the season? I'm not blaming. One thing that people like to do is they like to blame coaches for damn near everything, which I get. It's kind of like when you're the spokesperson for something, they're always going to blame you. When you're the face of something, they're going to blame you. One of the famous instances of this is Ronnie 2K. Every single time there are issues with NBA 2K, they blame Ronnie 2K because he's essentially the face of 2K. Even though he's not, I don't think he's a game developer. I don't think that he really does anything to build and make the game. He's just the one that promotes it. He's just the face of the technical side of NBA 2K. So any single time somebody or that community has an issue, they point those aggressions to Ronnie 2K, even though he probably has nothing to do with it. When you hear about players not playing hard, when you hear about players not getting back on defense, when you hear about players not really giving their all on the court, it's always going to be on the coach. Or I'll say this, they always put it on the coach. And that is always, I'm not going to say rub me the wrong way because I don't care that much, but that has always been weird to me. Because the coaches why do you need the coach's motivation to play defense? Why do you need the coach's motivation to care about playing, being a better offensive player, being the best player that you can be? I think that's because, again, the reports are saying that Mike Malone, a lot of players didn't like how he treated Russell Westbrook. Shout out to the Gilbert Arenas podcast. They kind of broke it down as well, but that is the issue, yet superpower with Russell Westbrook. Again, shout out to Gilbert Arenas podcast. He said it, or they said it as well, that crew over there. But one of the reasons why Russell Westbrook has struggled almost everywhere he's gone after OKC is because Russell Westbrook's play style is cemented. Russell Westbrook's play style has never changed. They say that, I know when you hear a lot of people talk about Russell Westbrook, they say that his play style doesn't amount to winning. His play style doesn't contribute to winning. And I'm not saying they're wrong, but I think that they're out of context. I think that Russell Westbrook's play style does not contribute to winning on a team that essentially isn't trying to win. Now, yes, the whole Lakers thing, that I think was more fit. But when you go to the Wizards, he was successful with he helped Bradley Beal and the Wizards make it to the playoffs. Nobody thought that they were going to win a championship, but still. You went to the Rockets. I don't think that play style helped him because we know the type of player that Russell Westbrook is. We also know the type of player that Westbrook is not. Then you went to the Lakers. That wasn't a good fit. And now we're here in Denver. You see, Russell Westbrook plays at 100 all the time. That's in games. That's at practice. And when you see someone that plays at 100 every time, you're either going to do one or two things. You're either going to match that energy or you're going to succumb to that energy. And I think if everyone played as hard as Westbrook, you have a championship caliber team. Now, yes, I understand there are some faults in Russell Westbrook's game, but we're just talking about the energy. If you play as hard as Russell Westbrook, if every single player plays as hard, I'm not talking about the logic of the game. I'm saying if they play as hard as him, you have a championship caliber team. Because again, the NBA has the best players in the world. The Spurs without Wemby, without De'Aaron Fox, just beat Golden State, a team that needs wins. On any given day, these are the best players in the world. Imagine what happens when they play hard. Because quiet as it's kept, not everyone plays hard. You'd have the championship caliber team. Not saying that you're going to ultimately win it because you need talent and stuff, but still. So when Mike Malone sees that, when Jokic sees that, the best player on the team and arguably the best player in the world, and you just see them heap praise on Russell Westbrook on top of the fact that he keeps getting minutes and he's getting effective minutes. Yes, there are some blunders that he's had that has cost them games, but that's what you're going to get with Russell Westbrook. You have to take the good with the bad. But when you've been there for years, and you see someone come in who does things different than you, might I add, and gets the praise for it, I understand if you may feel some type of way. I also don't understand because you're not doing as much as he's doing. What I'm saying is this. There can be issues galore. I think that it's problematic that reports are saying that Mike Malone and Calvin Booth hated each other and would talk behind each other's backs a lot. Because when you're the GM and you're the coach, that has to be a symbiotic relationship. When you're talking about trading players, when you're talking about bringing in players. You need to know that your GM and your head coach are in lockstep. You hear reports saying that Mike Malone, it was such a toxic locker room. Well, I get that. And again, if you want to fire Mike Malone at the end of the season, with the playoffs are over and you may or may not be champions. You know what that is? You know what? Because I think the owner said something. He was like, winning masks a lot of things, which I've said on this podcast since the beginning. And he essentially said, he didn't say this word for word, but he essentially said, we didn't want to win. And it would be then looked at as a worse move to fire. Because Mike Malone was getting fired regardless. This has kind of been brewing. It kind of felt, when we talked about Mike Malone and the Denver Nuggets, it for a couple years now, it's felt like a rocky situation. Probably ever since they won a championship. The years after, year after that, and to this point, it hasn't felt like the most welcoming relationship, most warm relationship. But when I say that people are going to show you what they believe. People are going to show you how they feel. People are going to show you their stances through their actions way more than their words. And what the owner showed for Denver is, we don't care about winning a championship this year. Because there's no one that, even if the locker room was toxic, you have a better shot with a championship winning coach than without. But he's essentially saying, we don't want to win this year because we don't want the Denver Nuggets to win a championship. And then they look and say, why are we now firing Mike Malone? Or it looks worse on the organization that we were already going to fire him, but he won a championship. He won 2 championships. So it's like, let's get this out the way now and get the blowback now so it doesn't get worse for us because we have a legit shot of winning a championship. Let me talk about Jokic for a second. I don't think Jokic is the reason why Mike Malone got fired. I do think Jokic is the reason Mike Malone is not there as the Denver Nuggets head coach, however. What I mean by that is I don't think Jokic, it doesn't see, I don't know. I don't have any insiders. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not in the organization. But Jokic doesn't seem like the type of person that'll say, get Mike Malone up out of here. Jokic doesn't seem like the type that'll go to management and say, hey, I don't like the coach. I don't like where this is going. Get him up out of here. It just doesn't seem like he's that type of person. However, I have said this time and time and time and time and time and time again. The player is always going to outlast, especially a player as talented as Jokic is always going to last longer than the coach. And I mean, what I mean by that is, when you are getting paid as much as Jokic is getting paid, when you are as good and as talented as Jokic is, he is widely considered one of, if not the best player in the world. If Jokic wanted Mike Malone would still be the head coach of the Denver Nuggets. While I don't think he went and said, I want him out of here, I surely don't think he said, I want him to stay. I don't think that's an issue. If you don't want him to coach, you don't want him to coach. And you're always going to acquiesce to your best player. If Steph Curry right now said, I want Steve Kerr out of here, he's gone. But if the organization said, hey, a good organization, if they said, hey, we're thinking about moving on from Steve Kerr, and Steph Curry goes, no, I want him to be my coach, I put my life savings as Steve Kerr ain't getting fired. So because Mike Malone's not there, and because Jokic hasn't come out and said, yeah, I wanted him to stay, I think there is credence to there was some tension in the locker room. A lot of tension in the locker room, obviously, because you're firing a man 3 games before the playoffs. And I think Mike Malone is a fabulous coach. I think he will be a head coach next year. There's not going to be a long wait for Mike Malone once the season ends. He's one of the better coaches. He calls out his team, and a lot of people don't like that. He calls out his players. He's called out the Nuggets players a couple times this year, honestly. But he also has some of those old style coaching methods that a lot of people these days don't really appreciate. I think that this essentially, and even the owner said it, not verbatim, but you're paraphrasing. I think this essentially kills the Nuggets' chances of winning a championship this year. And it's unfortunate. And I think these type of moves is what sets a lot of things in motion when we talk about what's next for a player like Nikola Jokic. If Nikola Jokic wanted him to stay, he probably would. But I think Nikola Jokic also is looking at saying, why would you make this decision now? I would understand if they're in the play-in. I would understand if they're not even in the playoffs. But they're the 3rd seed. In the West. It's crazy. It's crazy. Speaking of it's crazy, we also got a Luka Doncic reunion. Not reunion. Luka Doncic returned to Dallas in a game that was extremely emotional. They had a tribute video for Luka. He was tearing up. He was crying. The fans were cheering him on damn near every point in the first quarter. Luka ended up dropping 45 points on his former team. And watching that game, there was a couple things that stood out to me. There was a couple things that confirmed a lot. And the obvious are still the obvious. I still think it was a dumb trade. I still think it was a confusing trade. I still hate that it happened. I still hate that the Mavericks just seemingly at every turn tried to justify the trade by throwing dirt on Luka's name, which in turn, I don't believe in basketball, guys, but I do believe in karma, which in turn, now that you see pretty much the most important people on their team was or is still injured. All that is still the obvious. But what was confirmed to me is one, Nico Harris is getting fired. There is no there is no way, shape, or form that you can convince me that Nico Harris will be the GM of the Dallas Mavericks the start of next season. I'm actually shocked that he hasn't been fired yet. But then again, a smart organization, you don't really want to fire the GM in the middle of a season. I get it. But it's not just the fact that you traded Luka. It's the fact that you traded Luka had a BS reasoning for it, and the return that you got back, the fans have not attached themselves to. Which kind of brings me to point number 2, and I need to talk about AD. Because the same thing that happened to Jimmy Butler when he went back as a Golden State Warrior to the Miami Heat and didn't do nothing. That's what AD did. Look, we know how good AD is. We know how good AD can be. Hell, the Dallas Maverick fans know how good that he can be because the first game he was a Dallas Maverick, he was killing until he got hurt. And I think that is probably the worst thing that could have happened, not only to Anthony Davis when we talk about his relationship with the Dallas fans, but Nico Harris when we talk about his relationship with the Dallas fans and his rationale on the trade. Because every issue that you could have had when we talk about trading Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis essentially happened in the first game. The very first game that Anthony Davis was a Maverick. He has an incredible game, but he shows just why he hasn't really been that guy outside of playing with LeBron James in the bubble. Because he gets hurt after having a monster game and sits out for a long period of time. So you're already starting the relationship with the Dallas Mavericks fan on a roller coaster ride. They see the highs and they see the lows in one single game. And then when Luka comes back to town, mind you, the Lakers are coming off a back-to-back. Mind you, yes, I understand that Luka didn't essentially finish the game because he got ejected, but you're playing a tired team. I understand that emotions is going to fuel the game because, you want to win. But you're playing against a team that is coming off a back-to-back, and you didn't play since like Saturday. This is the game where you cement yourself as a Dallas Maverick. This is the game where you show the fans where you're still in good hands. I understand that you love Luka. I understand that your relationship with Luka is your relationship, but I'm here to show you that this is the new age. This is why you should be okay, or this is why you should feel that you're in good hands with me. You have to go out there and put, lack of a better term, put your nuts on the table and said, this is who I am. Mind you, Anthony Davis just had a great game. I think he had like 35 and something. This is your moment. With the guy that people are upset that they traded him for you. He comes back to the building. Tribute video. Fans cheering. Fans, sold out arena. This is the game where Anthony Davis is supposed to show you, hey, F all that, it's over with. I'm here, and you're in good hands. No Kyrie. And Anthony Davis goes out and has, 13 points? While in the same game, the man that you replaced, the man that they traded you for, puts 45 on y'all head. Not only do I think that this game right here solidified that Nico is gone, But it also solidified a lot about Anthony Davis. Just like I think the game Jimmy Butler had with the Heat solidified a lot with Jimmy Butler. I don't think the fans will ever get over Luka getting traded. That has been very clear. Hell, you even have Jason Kidd talking about this trade is being talked about in the same vein of the Babe Ruth trade from the Red Sox to the Yankees. And I know he said that's pretty cool. No, it is not, bro. That Babe Ruth trade is widely considered one of, if not the worst trade in sports history. When you look at what it did for the Yankees compared to what it did for the Boston Red Sox. It took almost 80 years for the Red Sox to win again. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the case for the Dallas Mavericks because I think that they have a good team, but I feel like there's no way. Hell, even to this day, even in that game, you were getting fire Nico Harris chants. And I know it's just one game, but it's not just one game. If you're Anthony Davis, you can't go out like that, especially when the person that the whole fan base is upset that you are on the team because they traded him is putting on a masterclass against y'all. And you have a measly 13 points. It showed me that I don't think there's any way that Nico Harris is the coach. Is the GM of this team by in an NBA draft. Because there's no way in heaven or hell. I get it. He's a Nike guy. I think he used to work for Nike, and that's why you see him get someone like Anthony Davis, get someone like PJ Washington, get someone like Kyrie, all Nike guys. I get it. At the end of the day, the NBA, sports in general, it's a business. And in business, as we know, there's a thing that's probably more important than currency when we talk about business, and that is relationships. If you have the right relationships, you're always going to have a safety net. That's just how it is. That's in the corporate world, in the business world, in sports. If you have the right relationships, you will never go hungry. But when you see a game like that, what have those relationships got you? I don't think Nico Harris is I don't think he'll be a GM no time soon, but I think he'll be completely fine. I mean, he was with Nike for a minute. But after watching that, after seeing the reaction, after seeing Luka go crazy, which he's been doing, not only do I think that it is for sure over with for Nico Harris, I think that there will never be the connection that you hope the fans would have to someone like AD. You know what's crazy? Yeah, I will admit that I think that this is mainly because he never got hurt. But you can just feel and you can tell the fans, the Dallas Mavericks fans, are more connected with someone like Max Christie than they are with Anthony Davis. Max Christie is kind of one of those, he's not the best player, obviously, but he always plays hard and he always does his job. And again, I do think that a lot of it is probably because he never got hurt and Anthony Davis did get hurt. But I do think it's crazy that the fans are more, well, it feels like they're more welcoming to someone like Max Christian than they are Anthony Davis. When you see a game like this, when there's a game where you need to show who the hell you are, when you need to bring back the Anthony Davis that had 59 and 20 games, 59.20 rebound games, the Anthony Davis that was undoubtedly the best big man when he was with New Orleans. The Anthony Davis that was the best player, essentially. I know he didn't win Finals MVP, but was the best player on that bubble championship, the championship run that he outdueled someone like Nikola Jokic. When that Anthony Davis needs to pop up and be like, yo, this is who I am. You're good and we're good. I know y'all love Luka, but I'm not Luka. This is who y'all got. And we're going to be in good hands. You go and do that. I think that there will never be a connection to Anthony Davis like there was to Luka. Obviously, because Luka was drafted and everything and he played longer. But when you have games like that, that is the perfect game to win fans over. And I think that Anthony Davis, I think that Nico Harris did the complete opposite of that. They lost the love of Dallas fans more than gain it. When Luka comes in and drops 45 on your head, crying in a tribute. He was crying the entire tribute video because he didn't want to get traded. And still killed y'all. I don't know. Let's move forward. I want to say congratulations to the UConn. This is obviously I was away, so I'm a little late to it. But I want to say congratulations to the UConn women's basketball team for winning the national championship. Gino Auriemma winning his 12th national championship. They destroyed South Carolina 82-59. The question was, what was the divide? Was UConn 30-something points or 20-something points that much better than South Carolina? And I say no. I wasn't really able to talk about it. I think I talked about it a tad bit before I left. Momentum is a very important thing to have. And it's not just momentum in game, it's momentum. It could be a couple games. Momentum is important. It's important for your psyche. It's important for your team. It's important to have not just momentum, but to play your best at the right time. Your best players, your team playing its best at the right time. And that's what I think the biggest difference was between South Carolina and UConn. South Carolina deserved to be in the national championship. South Carolina was one of the best teams, if not the best team in the nation pretty much the entire year. But when you see UConn, you know how they talk about the proverbial switch? And when you flip the switch, let me tell you what it looked like for UConn. I think it started in the Big East tournament. Once they started I think it might have been the first. Once they started rolling, it never stopped. And when you have someone like AZ Fudd, when you have someone like what is her name? When you have Sarah Strong, I apologize. When you have someone like Paige Beckerts, when that ball starts to get rolling and you have generational players that will be, Paige Beckerts is projected to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. When you have players like that and your whole team is rolling, they're playing their best basketball at the right time. Think about this. I'm not going to say they would have won. I'm not going to say they would have lost because I don't know. But I do think that it helped that they didn't have to play, they didn't have to play Juju Watkins and USC. But when you look at their road in fact, let's go all the way back to their closest game. Actually, their Tennessee loss, because they lost to Tennessee 80-76. Since then, they beat Providence by 37. They beat St. John's by 38. They beat South Carolina by 29. They beat Seton Hall by damn near 50. They beat Butler by damn near 40. They beat Creighton by 19. They beat Marquette by damn near 40. They beat St. John's by 31. They beat Villanova by damn near 28. They beat Creighton by 20. You go to the tournament, March Madness tournament, they beat Arkansas State by 69 points. They beat Dakota State by damn near 40. They beat number 3 Oklahoma by damn near 30. They beat number 1 USC by 14 points. They beat the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, UCLA, by 34 points. And then they beat South Carolina by damn near 30. Once the team, that's nothing but momentum. And it's talent, obviously, but it's momentum. Once the ball gets rolling, it's like an avalanche. Once that snow gets coming, like once it's going down, once the team you can't stop it. And you have a great coach like Gino Auriemma. You have a star like Paige Beckers. And I think the thing that unlocked them, outside of Sarah Strong being as good as she is, the thing that unlocked them is AZ Fudd hooping. AZ Fudd had an incredible run, probably since from USC, UCLA to South Carolina, she had her best games of the season. She tied with Sarah Strong with the leading scorers in the South Carolina game with 24. AZ Fudd, mind you, she also came back from injury. She wasn't doing nothing really until she was doing something. You saw a team that was always good enough to win a championship. They just weren't. They weren't gelling. They weren't not gelling. They weren't playing their best. But once they flipped the switch, and I don't mean it in a sense of mentally, I mean it in a sense of once everyone started playing their best, once everyone started playing their role to the best of their ability, they were unstoppable. On the flip side, South Carolina, they weren't playing their best. South Carolina, while yes, they were winning, they won the SEC, it wasn't a cakewalk. They were struggling. Let me see. In the tournament, they won by 50. Indiana, they won by 11. Maryland, they won by 4. Duke, they won by 4. Texas, they beat Texas. They just overwhelmed Texas. And they lost to UConn. The issues and the problems that South Carolina had pretty much all season, they were able to mask because they're an incredible team. I don't think there's a team better in the nation than South Carolina was. But they weren't playing their best. A lot of these games, even though they won by a lot, they were down big that they had to come back. They were down against Duke. They were down against Maryland. They were down double digits against Texas. You had a team that was playing their best in UConn to a team that going into the national championship, you had a team that was playing their best in UConn and a team that wasn't exactly playing their best in South Carolina. And You saw what happened. I think Don Staley's an incredible coach. I think they'll be back. I don't know if they'll be back to the national championship, but they did just get the leading scorer in the NCAA. She just transferred to South Carolina, so they're retooling. But that's another thing. They didn't really have a go-to scorer. So congratulations to UConn for getting back to the mountaintop. I think they haven't won since 2016. UConn is UConn. They keep doing it. They keep getting players like Sarah Strong. AZ Fudd had her game. Paige Beckers is Paige Beckers. She had, I think, a 40 and a 30-point game in this tournament. And you know what's crazy about this too? When I look, only 2 players scored off the bench, and they still dominated. When you look at South Carolina, only 2 players scored in double figures. So I think they'll be back. But congratulations to UConn for winning the national championship. And I also want to say congratulations to Florida for winning the national championship on the men's side. I think that this is a byproduct of NIL. This is a byproduct of the transfer portal. When you hit on both areas, you get a team as good as Florida. Now, Houston, man, it's so interesting, and it's so funny how the tides turn, like how Houston had an incredible comeback win against, in fact, the same thing that Houston did to Duke in the Final Four is exactly what happened to them against Florida. Florida led all of 64 seconds this entire game. The Florida Gators led for 1 minute and 4 seconds the entire game and ended up winning. Houston, it was right there, man. And I'm not going to single anybody out, but Emmanuel Sharp. Can't pump. And then you turn the. It was devastating watching. I know Houston was devastated. And the thing is, bro, Houston's game plan was working. Again, they were leading for all of 1 minute and 4 seconds. Walter Clayton struck 3 for 10, 1 for 7 from the field, had 11 points. That's the guy that for sure can kill you. And they let Will Richard have 18. They let Alex Condon had 12. And on top of that, the one thing, then the biggest issue I've had with Houston all season, reared its head. Now, I'm not going to say ugly head because it got them to the national championship, but they don't have another go-to scorer outside of LJ Cryer, and it showed. LJ Cryer had 19 points. The next best player had 9. There was not another player on Houston that scored in double figures. That's not going to win you a national championship. Hell, you just look over with the women's side. In South Carolina, only 2 players scored over 10 or scored 10 or more points. Both of them were bench players. When LJ Cryer, and don't get me wrong, he's one of the best scorers in the nation, he needs some help, bro. And you're playing against a team full of killers in the Florida, And the craziest thing is they were winning the whole game. But what you saw there is momentum in a different direction. You saw UConn came into it with momentum, and they were just a steamroll. Like they just steamrolled through the tournament. Florida. Florida damn near almost lost to Auburn. If Auburn didn't make some key mistakes and blow big leads, same thing as Houston. Yeah, man. Congratulations to Florida. Congratulations to UConn for winning the national championships. I'm not going to stay too much longer on them because they happened a while ago. And, again, this is me kind of catching up. So I want to talk about something. No. I am not a avid hockey fan. We know this. And no, I can't say that when I watch hockey, I know exactly what's going on. I'm not gonna sit here and cap to y'all. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to y'all. I watch hockey when it comes to the playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, and my team, which is I'm from the DMV, Maryland to be exact. And I watch the Capitals. I have a Capitals tattoo on me. Alex Ovechkin. This also happened when I was away, but I had to talk about it. Alex Ovechkin became the NHL's all-time goal scorer with 895 goals. He also, ironically, did it against the Islanders, passing the great Wayne Gretzky, who we know who he was famous for playing. I'm not saying that Alex Ovechkin is better than Wayne Gretzky. I will never say that. As a person that doesn't know much about hockey, I do know who Wayne Gretzky is, and I do know the importance, the impact that he brings. It's like this. For people that don't know, you know how there is a debate? If you get 10 people in the room, some older heads, some newer heads, 5 people will probably say Michael Jordan's the greatest player of all time. 5 of them will probably say LeBron James is the greatest player of all time, and they'll argue. I think that is an argument that can be had. There is no argument when it comes to who is the best hockey player when we talk about Alex Ovechkin or Wayne Gretzky. 10 out of 10 people will say Wayne Gretzky. But I will say this. When we talk about the history of the sport, when we talk about moments, people, teams, things that shape the NHL and things that make the NHL what it is, there's no way that you could ever talk about the history, the lineage of the NHL and not talk about Alex Ovechkin. No, I don't think he's better than Wayne Gretzky. What I do think is he is the greatest goal scorer in the history of the game. Even better than Wayne Gretzky. And what I think is beautiful, and what I think makes this award so special, is doing it with the same team he's been on his entirety of his career, dating back to when the team that drafted him in the Washington Capitals. Alex Ovechkin has a Stanley Cup. If I'm not mistaken, he has a Stanley Cup MVP. When you think about Capitals hockey, you think about the Great Eight. Hell, we were calling him the Great Eight before he had this. He is the staple of the team. He is the face, and I think will forever, kind of like the Islanders. The face of the Islanders is Wayne Gretzky. The face, was it the Islanders? The face of the Capitals is Alex Ovechkin. And now, when you think about goal scoring, he's the face of that too. And we're going to talk about another record in a second. Because there's this thing where once you break a record, you're supposed to be the greatest at something. And I don't necessarily think that's the case. And we'll talk about that a little bit more towards the end of the show. But when we talk about this, when we talk about who is the greatest goal scorer of all time, I was hella wrong. Not the Islanders. I meant the Oilers. Jesus Christ. Wayne Gretzky played for the Oilers. I'm sorry. I knew that. That's why I was thinking, like, wait, I'm wrong. I apologize. Wayne Gretzky is the face of the Oilers, not the Islanders. The Oilers, not the Islanders. The Oilers, the Edmonton Oilers, not the New York Islanders. I was wrong. I apologize. But what I was saying is this. This record can be broken when you have people like Austin Matthews, when you have people like Connor McDavid, when you have people like Bernard. This record can be broken. But as of right now, I don't think it will. And as of right now, I think that Alex Ovechkin is the greatest goal scorer of all time. And this record solidifies it. He's played in several different eras, several different iterations of the NHL. And his greatness continued to shine. And I wanted to start this by saying that I don't know nothing. I don't really know anything about hockey. And I think that is even a testament to how great Alex Ovechkin is, because from a person that doesn't know anything about hockey, I don't even know if I can ice skate. Someone as great as him makes me want to watch him. His greatness has permeated throughout the team. The team is number one in the Metro. Has a really good shot of winning a Stanley Cup. He makes someone like me care about hockey. A basketball head, care about hockey. Congratulations, Alex Ovechkin, for standing atop the NHL, the history of the NHL, as the greatest goal scorer of all time, with 885 and counting. Shouts out to you. Hard conversations need to be had in sports. That's one reason why I think it's always difficult. We don't really understand how difficult it could be to be a GM, to be a head coach, to be an owner, when you have to make difficult decisions. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are faced with a incredibly difficult decision on their hands. A decision that sounds blasphemous when you hear all the details and all the reasons for one side or the other. But I think a decision that they need to make. We know who TJ Watt is. TJ Watt is one of the in a long line of incredible defensive players that has walked through the Pittsburgh Steelers locker room, walked through the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, from Troy Polamalu to Marvin or to Harrison. We know the greatness. We know the lineage that radiates Steelers football. TJ Watt is one of the greatest defensive players the organization has ever seen. TJ Watt is one of the best defensive players in all of football we have ever seen. And right now, I think he's going through contract disputes. He would like a new contract. I think this is the end of his deal, and he wants a new contract. And I don't know how it's going, but I know that if you look at this picture behind me, all my YouTube listener or YouTube viewers, all my DSP listeners, I apologize, but I have a picture of TJ Watt trucking up the deuces. That's what he put on his Instagram, which could be cryptic for something. Who knows? But I'm just going to come out and say it. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have to trade TJ Watt. Whoa, you heard that? All the Steelers fans, they're throwing stuff at my window. They're typing on, like, whoa, hold on. Let me explain, y'all. Because I know that this is the reason why this is so difficult. Not only is TJ Watt their best player by far, TJ Watt has been the model of consistency when we talk about this team that has been nothing but inconsistent. Outside of Mike Tomlin having going above 500 or not having a losing record in the regular season. We know the calling card that is the Pittsburgh Steelers is always going to be defense, especially with Mike Tomlin as the head coach. And we know that TJ Watt is one of the best defensive players, if not the best defensive player in football. The reason why I feel like you have to trade him is because what you're not and what you haven't been since the early parts of Mike Tomlin's head coaching career. The issue that the Pittsburgh Steelers has always had is such an imbalanced team. Their defense has always been so great, but their offense hasn't been great since Big Ben, since Antonio Brown, since Le'Veon Bell. In fact, it's been lower than great. It has not been good. They have not had no type of consistency. I think I talked about this last episode or the episode before as to why the Pittsburgh Steelers are in the situation that they're in with this Aaron Rodgers situation. And it seems like they're just begging to get Aaron Rodgers. Hell, the Cleveland Browns just re-signed or just signed Joe Flacco back. So it looks like Aaron Rodgers, who knows? But when you look, you have DK Metcalf. You have George Pickens, who I don't think is going to be there much longer. You don't really have... You have Jaylen Warren at the running back position. And you still don't have a quarterback. But when you look and you see a Cam Ward and you see a Shedeur Sanders, two quarterbacks that could possibly change the fortunes of your organization if you have the right pieces around them. Well, they're going to go high in the draft, but there's only one way that you can cement yourself and put yourself in the position to try to get them, and that's trading TJ Watt. I know that they say that this is an offensive-heavy league. And when you look at some of the rule changes and you look at how the game is being talked about and how the game gets broadcast, I understand what people are saying. But if you look at the previous champions, when you look at the Eagles, when you look at the Chiefs, hell, even the people that haven't won, if you look at the 49ers when they went to the championship, if you look at the team like the Ravens, if you look at a team like, I don't know, probably those teams, the Bills, maybe not the Bills. But when you look at the teams that have had the most success, while yes, they've been good offensively, they've had a generational talent, whether we talk about Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, one thing that they've had is balance. When you look at the Eagles, they had an incredible defense last year. They also had Jalen Hurts. They also had Saquon Barkley. They also had A.J. Brown. They also had Devontae Smith. When you look at the year before, the Chiefs, yes, you have Patrick Mahomes. Yes, you have Travis Kelce, but you also have Chris Jones. The Pittsburgh Steelers hasn't been balanced since Big Ben. And not even the end of Big Ben, probably the middle of Big Ben's career. And I only see one way out of this. I will say it like this. You get a deal done with TJ Watt. No one will look at you like, the hell? What? TJ Watt's one of the best defensive players in football. No one will look at you crazy. But if you do, right? If you do get a deal done with TJ Watt, what are you, and you plan on keeping him for the long term, what are you reassuring? You're reassuring that you're going to be the same old Pittsburgh Steelers. You're going to have incredible defense because their defense is really good. You're going to have maybe one, maybe two offensive pieces, but you don't have anyone to steer the ship, or your offensive line is terrible, or your skilled players don't work out. It seems like every issue that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had for years now has mainly been on the offensive side of the ball, whether it's the line, quarterback, receiving core, running back. Like, their defense has always been good. But as much as we talk about Mike Tomlin's regular season record, what's his playoff record? Better question. When's the last time the Pittsburgh Steelers won a playoff game? I'm not saying that TJ. In fact, I'm not saying that TJ Watt is trash. I'm actually saying, on the contrary, TJ Watt is pretty much the only bargaining chip that can really change the trajectory of the Pittsburgh Steelers' future. Because if they want to continue to be the Pittsburgh Steelers that they've been for years now, and I understand it's not a bad place. It's not a bad place to keep making it to the playoffs. It's not a bad place to not finish under 500. It's not a bad place, you know. But when we're talking about a storied organization, a storied franchise, a franchise that has as many championships as they have, a franchise that has coined the name the Steel Curtain, a franchise that had the bus, a franchise that had, Antonio Brown before he went left, a franchise that knows winning. Y'all haven't been that in a while. And I think that if you want to get back to that place, there's really only one move that you can do. Because you don't have the capital anywhere else to make this move outside of trading TJ Watt. To maybe get a Cam Ward. Maybe get a Shedeur Sanders. Looks like he's slipping in the draft. You can keep being who you've been. And if that's good enough for y'all, which is not bad, if that's good enough for y'all, shout out to y'all. But I remember what they used to be. And they're nowhere close to that. And there's really only one move that they can make to get close to that. And as unfortunate it is probably trading their best player. But we'll see. Lastly, before we go, we have the unpopular topic of the day. And I want to give a shout out to the Numbers on the Board podcast / show. Shouts out to them. They are on ESPN now. When I was on my way back from Puerto Rico, their show was actually airing on ESPN News. I was watching it on my way back from my trip, and they brought up a topic that I wanted to talk about. And this also goes hand in hand with what I was talking about with Alex Ovechkin. So again, shouts out to the boys or the crew that is Numbers on the Board. Go check them out. They're incredible. Pierre, I believe his name is, I think was asked a question. The question is, if and possibly when the 3-point record that Steph Curry currently holds, most 3-pointers of all time, if and when that record gets broken. Because when you look at how the game is played, when you look at the revolution of the 3-point ball, when you look at just how many teams, how many players, I think this is the first or second year in NBA history where more than one player had 300 plus threes made in one season. And yeah, we're at Steph did it. Malik Beasley did it, and Anthony Edwards have done it. So the way that this is going, and if you look, someone like Jason Tatum has scored more threes at his age than Steph Curry did at his age. Now, yes, Steph Curry dealt with a bunch of injuries, and he probably would have had more, but we're here. The question was, if and when somebody breaks Steph Curry's record for most threes of all time, are they considered the greatest 3-point shooting or 3-point shooter of all time? And Pierre emphatically said no. And I agree. Now, I said that this kind of ties into the Alex Ovechkin thing because I do think the way that hockey is played and the way that hockey goes, I do think because Alex Ovechkin has that record and how there's not many players, there's maybe one or two, there's not many players that is on the same trajectory when we talk about goal scorers as Alex Ovechkin. And while the game is faster, the players are better, the equipment is better, Alex Ovechkin has the way that he plays, the way that he scores goals, the way that goals are scored in general, it hasn't really, how do I say this? It hasn't been revolutionized. I think that just players are better, but the impact that Steph Curry has on the game of basketball when we talk about just how it's played, I don't think Alex Ovechkin has had that. And I think a lot of that is because people can't do what Alex Ovechkin has done. It is, I mean, obviously, again, I don't play hockey, but it is damn hard to score 895 goals. But I think because the game of basketball has changed so much in the favor of 3-point scores and 3-point shooting that I think it's inevitable. And most of it is because of Steph Curry's greatness. Most of it is because Steph Curry revolutionized the game of basketball when we talk about the 3-point shot. That right there is why when Steph Curry passed someone like Reggie Miller, when they passed someone like Ray Allen for most of all time, that felt different because we also knew we're watching a different basketball game than we were when Reggie Miller, when Ray Allen was there. And a lot of that is because of the person that was passing them, which is Steph Curry. Steph Curry, this is his 6th season with 300 or more three-pointers made in a season. This is his 6th time doing it in his career. To put that into perspective, when you collect every other player that has done that, there's only 4 of them. So Steph Curry has more 300 threes made a season. He has more himself than the rest of the league in NBA history. And also to put that into perspective, 2 of the 4 are playing this year. I think that because the game is played a certain way, that more than likely Steph Curry's record with most threes of all time will be broken. But I do think a lot of that is because Steph Curry revolutionized the game of basketball, and the emphasis on threes wouldn't be as prominent if it wasn't for Wardell Stephen Curry. And that is why when his record is broken, I will still say he's the greatest shooter of all time. There you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. All my YouTube listeners, I appreciate all of you guys. I see my subscriber count is slowly but surely going up. I appreciate you all. If you like the content and you're not subscribed, if you're looking at me right now, you're not subscribed. If you see any of the short or reels that I put and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. It means a lot. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. I'm really close to 2K, which is I never thought would be fathomable. So I appreciate all of you guys. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe if you like the content. For all my DSP listeners, that's Apple Podcasts, that's Spotify, that's SoundCloud. If you like hearing my luscious voice and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. If you know someone that would love listening to this, please subscribe. It means so much to me. No platform is more important than the other. I appreciate all of you guys. I appreciate all the support. Please, DSPs, YouTube, please follow, subscribe. Also, for my social media followers, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, if please continue to engage with the content. Please tell people that isn't subscribed to subscribe. That's where you get the reels, longer reels. That's where you get back and forth with me. That's where you get stories. If you want to go back and forth, that's probably the quickest way to do it. I don't mind going back and forth with you guys. If you just keep it respectful, it means that you care about what's ever being talked about. You're passionate about whatever's being talked about. You're listening to me and you have an opinion, all of which I appreciate. Again, if you keep it respectful, I don't mind hearing your opinion. I read pretty much every comment. So please, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, please subscribe. All the links are in the description below. Until next time, much love.